So hello everyone, nice having you all here today, and we're really happy to have Chad with us today. He's from the pre-review team, whom we've already met a lot. But Chad is today's session is doesn't have much to do with peer review, but it's more about how you can engage your community before and during and after a training event or a workshop event, which is an important skill that all of us have to learn as we prepare to engage with our communities. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Chad.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And, as we go and other people join the call, if any of us forget to add that helpful message in the chat about finding the slide deck in the document, please feel welcome to copy and paste it yourself if you notice a newcomer joining us. But hello, my name is Chad Sansing. I'm the head of product at PREreview. Use he, him pronouns. I live on traditional lands of the Monacan people in the United States and Virginia. You may hear behind me at some point today Sleepy the dog, who I consider my chief canine officer, as someone would put it, the chief of barketing. But here we are. And for those of you, I imagine many of you are familiar with PREreview, but we are an open peer preprint review platform for all researchers. And I think very excitingly, in the future, working with other experts as well, who are deeply invested in different kinds of research, such as folks from the public sector or patients and patient advocates. And, here between Peer Review Week and Open Access Week, and here coming up on, another year at PREreview, it's just an exciting time to be joining you. And I'm super excited to join you today to talk about facilitating participatory workshops. This is, work we love to engage in. We have our training efforts, we have our publication platform, and then we have our different, kind of user research efforts, such as working with different audiences of experts, as I just mentioned. So, we try to do a few things very well instead of everything kind of well. And today we're going to focus on kind of our approach to facilitating participatory workshops. And, potential connection for you in the future might be if you're organizing a review club or a one-time live review or your own open peer review training workshop at a larger event or as a standalone event. Hopefully, some of these ideas will help you. All right. So if you found the slide deck and you found the shared note-taking document, that's what we'll use today. I'll try to make sure the slide that I'm sharing is the correct one if you'd like to stay mostly in the document. There's a roll call if you'd like to share any information about yourself, just to stay, in touch further with folks in your cohort or with us at PREreview. And we will go ahead and move on. Quick reminder, we are recording things here, so please participate as you feel comfortable. If you'd like to speak aloud, if you'd like to activate your camera, please feel welcome to do so. If you'd rather use the chat, add notes to the document, participate in other ways, that is exactly what the chat and the document are there for. Please do that. The recording will be available for folks afterwards, as I imagine your other trainings have been. All right. Couple of group agreements that we like to share, just to be clear at the beginning of calls like this at PREreview. If you'd like to add, like I said, your name and pronouns to that roll call, that'd be wonderful for staying in touch. Please do be mindful of what you share, since we're in, a public setting shared between Aaron and PREreview, since it's being recorded. Just make sure that you represent yourself however you would like to be represented. At any time, you need to grab a snack, a drink, stretch, move, take care of something that comes up, please do so. If you have a question and you'd like to raise your hand or put it in the chat, however you'd like to grab my attention, please interrupt me and we can answer that question. We will have a good amount of time for questions and answers at the end, and we will have a few breakout groups where you can discuss things with your cohort members on this call as well. But again, I am supremely interruptible. Please feel free to let me know when you have a question. If you notice that you maybe have a lot of questions or are responding to every point, maybe take a few questions off, make a little space for others, see how that goes. Welcome all questions. We all want to be mindful, though, including myself, which is why I want to get you into your breakout rooms of, speaking too much of the time and preventing others from doing so. And, when differences of opinion come up, let's be sure to share those as, well, from my perspective, I think of it this way. Oh, you think of it that way? That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that before. We're going to share ideas today just to get those ideas out there. We do not need to evaluate, argue, prove, disprove anything about the ideas today. If something, bad actory comes up, if something comes up and it is not in line with how we want to be together, we will, of course, address that. But if we're sharing ideas that are just different about something having to do with how we might run a workshop, we can just share those today, ask each other kind, clarifying questions, be supportive of one another. We don't need to, argue for any single best way today. And I'm sure there are many better ways to do things than sometimes we do at pre-review, and would love to hear those suggestions from you as well. All right. Since we are here in a kind of shared space with pre-review and Aaron today, I do want to remind everyone of the pre-review code of conduct. We're very committed to inclusive and safe spaces for participation from everyone, however they would like to participate. So we want to use welcoming and inclusive language today. We want to provide feedback that is constructive and useful to one another. We want to be respectful of those different viewpoints and experiences. We want to gracefully accept constructive criticism when people are trying to help us. And we want to show empathy towards other participants and community members. That, of course, on the flip side means, right, we are not going to dismiss, disrupt, harm, harass, or troll anyone. We are not going to pay anyone any unwanted attention, sexual or otherwise. We are not going to share anyone's personal information or quote their contributions without consent. And we're not going to act unprofessionally. We are not going to insist on providing destructive or harmful feedback. Those are the things we will not do today. Both in the slide deck, but also in the shared document, you can find a link to our full code of conduct if you'd like to learn more. If something comes up, you'd like to share it with us, file a report. Report@prereview.org is the email for that. You could also message me privately on the call. You could email me at chad@prereview.org. Or we have an anonymous form that goes right to our safety team, and they will follow up on it from there without you needing to provide any information about yourself. All right, let's get into the welcoming and sharing and discussion of our wonderful diverse viewpoints together. Today, our goals of the call are as follows. We want to understand what makes an event participatory rather than not. We want to know what to do before, during, and after an event to engage our community members. And we want to discuss with one another and discover ways to engage your communities with those events before, during, and after. If we can do all that, it will have been a super great call. All right. So on the document, we're going to go to the very bottom of page 2, and we're going to do our first kind of silent writing exercise, silent note taking, depending what it's called. If you have some kind of like Etherpad on the internet you're using, you get, silent whatever pad, silent Google Doc. But the idea here is just to model a form of participation where everyone can contribute an idea to a shared document and have some supportive interactions around it. So I would love to know at the bottom of page 2 in the section called Silent Note Taking 1, would you share about a time that you felt really included and engaged by a workshop or event? And what did others do to create those feelings of belonging? And this is a thing where you can type in the doc. If you wanted to type in the chat, we can copy and paste your notes over. If you'd like to raise a hand and share something out loud here, I can note take for you on the document. But our first prompt, and we'll take about 10 minutes here, is share about a time you felt especially included and engaged by a workshop, and what helped create that feeling of belonging for you. And there's a link to the document in the slide deck if you only have one of those things. Links are in the chat. As people add things, if you agree with something, please put a +1. If you have a question, you can drop down a line to a new bullet point and ask your question. Just make sure it's a kind and clarifying question, not a confrontational one. And if you have like a suggested resource or a link that you think might be useful or relevant or connected to somebody's idea, you could also drop down a line and indent and share that in a bullet point too. Any questions about the prompt before we get started? Some of us have already started, which is great. I'm going to put my timer on for 10 minutes. If things slow down a lot before we get to 10 minutes, I'll check in with everybody here and we'll go on. But let's take about 10 minutes and please share about times you felt included and engaged by a workshop and how people made you feel that way. What did they do that helped you feel like you belonged? All right, 10 minutes, here we go.
I think a couple of people just joined, so they might be wondering why we're silent. Yeah, so we are doing a small exercise on the Google document, which I've just shared in the chat, where
I'll share it.
yeah, we can share it again. Where
Yeah, I'll do that.
yeah, perfect. Yeah, so it's about sharing a time you felt especially included and engaged by a workshop, and what helped create those feelings and belonging. So this is why everyone is silent, and because everyone is writing.
Indeed. Lots of great sharing coming in. Again, we're at the bottom of page 2. And if you're having any trouble accessing the document, the prompt is a little bit up in the chat, but we're just asking, share about a time where you felt really involved and engaged with and welcomed by an event or a workshop, and let us know what the organizers did to help you feel that way. And if you'd like to share aloud here or in the chat on the Zoom call, if the doc is giving you any difficulties, you can do that, and we will take notes on the doc for you. We've got about, 6 minutes left or so. So I'll check in another 2 to 3 minutes, see how we're doing. But please do share your ideas for us.
I think while people are writing, I want to share something, and it's about when I don't necessarily feel especially included in a workshop, and especially online. I don't know why, but when like a session or a webinar or a workshop is done via Zoom webinars, where you can't really see the other attendees, I somehow feel not included. I really don't know why, but I was wondering if there anyone else who feels the same, but I don't know, it just automatically discourages me from the session.
I'm curious about that too. I think, there are lots of lots of different approaches and lots of ways facilitators have framed that in my experience from, please, if you can, turn cameras on, please do whatever makes you comfortable, please just come off to share, maybe in more of a webinar fashion. I'm not really sure. I think there was, I did notice kind of like, right, a shift as Zoom fatigue set in during the pandemic for sure. And the norm seemed to switch a little bit from cameras on to cameras off, very, very understandably. Um, yeah, I would love to know that too, if others have experiences or feelings in particular with cameras during video calls. It's a great, great question, Thomas. Thank you.
I think Sutonia has her hand raised. Sutonia,
Thank you.
would you like to say
Yeah, please.
something? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Lamis. Good afternoon from Nigeria. Sorry, I'm using my phone and I'm not able to type into the document. I don't know for what reason. I would have loved to share an experience that made me felt really included in a workshop. I don't know if
Yeah,
I can go
please.
ahead.
Yeah, of course. I'll take notes for you.
Okay, it was a physical workshop. It was a physical training. And I went into the training room, and for the first 10 minutes, I was lost. I didn't know what they were talking about or what they were doing. I just sat down quietly. And I guess the trainer looked at me, and maybe due to my expression, he found out I was lost. And he stopped the
Oh, I seem to have lost audio for you.
Yeah, I think it could be a connection issue.
Okay. We
Sutonia,
have,
yeah. No, so go ahead, chat. Go ahead.
yeah, I would love if you're able to rejoin with the mic, I can continue taking notes on that point for sure. I think that maybe the direction is going is stopping the training and clarifying. That's great for reading the room in-person events and is, I think, much different and sometimes easier, sometimes harder than in a virtual event. I was just going to say we've got about 2 minutes left here. So if you have already kind of shared your impressions here, it's a great time to check out what others have put into the document and to +1 those things that, oh yeah, that works for me too. To ask any kind clarifying questions you have, like, oh, sounds neat. How did they do that? Or to share any suggestions in terms of like resources you might have or links like, oh yeah, I saw a great example of how to do that here, and then perhaps sharing a link or something. Yeah, welcome back. Hand is still up. Go ahead, please, and continue sharing, and I can take some more notes for you for we've got another minute or so left in this part of the call.
Hello?
Yes,
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
absolutely.
Yeah,
No
I
worries.
was thrown out by the network. Sorry so much.
Oh,
I
no
was
worries.
saying
Not
that
your fault.
the trainer stopped everything he was doing and tried to find out what I knew about the subject. When I
Mm-hmm.
obviously told him how ignorant I was about it, he joked over it, made me feel so relaxed. Even
Good.
the co-participants were so nice and pleasing, and I felt from there it was a changing game for me. I felt so included in the training, and I picked up so fast.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That is great. All right. Well, look at this. We are right on time. We've had some great storytelling. I can't wait to read these more in depth, but just on first, glance through, uh, so much that I agree with here. And we're going to get to kind of like a particular way of introducing ourselves in a little bit. But we'll have a couple of these opportunities for silent note taking, a couple opportunities for breakout rooms, not because we think, one is necessarily better than the other, but we think finding a mix of these things in a call can really help encourage different kinds of participation from different folks. And it's important to provide those different kind of channels for engagement and participation in a workshop. And certainly want you to have some good practice with those today. Well, we are all here together to also ask questions and answers about the logistics of it all and the setup of it all and why these choices and why this agenda and those things. So if you have questions related to kind of how this thing was assembled, pieced together, built, make a list. We're gonna get to Q&A. It's gonna be great. All right. Those of you who are finishing up here, please continue sharing your stories. We're going to slowly mosey on to the next piece. Willis, before we go on, is there anything anybody else would like to share aloud from this first activity before we go to the next one? Yeah, Clara, if you'd like to come off mute or if you'd like to add in the chat, you can share and we can either take notes for you in the doc or copy and paste from the chat for you. We'll wait just another minute in case you'd like to do that. All right. Well, interrupt me if you'd like to come off mute, and we will totally come back to this part. Or again, add to the chat, and we will be sure to copy and paste it in. All right. Oh, typing. Wonderful. Super. Got there. That's great to hear. All right. So we're going to do something very similar. We're going to shift now into thinking about before an event, what are some of the things we can do to ensure that we are creating a participatory event, an engaging event, an event with lots of ways for people to get involved in ways that feel comfortable to them. So we're going to start with just another little bit of silent note taking. We'll do about 6 to 8 minutes this time to keep things going. But this prompt is at the top of page 4 in our shared document. If you're following along on the slides, you can click on that link to the shared doc and go to the top of page 4. Item 5, it's called Silent Note Taking 2. And here I would love to know about your experiences organizing. So shifting now from activating some prior knowledge about what it's like to be a participant at a welcoming event, an engaging event, participatory event, to now thinking about how we would do these things as organizers. What have you found useful when organizing an event? When you have to start planning for something, what are the processes you use? What are the steps you follow? Are there particular pieces of, software or post-it notes on a wall or note-taking, pencil, paper? What do you do when it's time to start organizing for a participatory event? And given your experience in organizing events, is there anything you've already kind of learned? Like, here's something I used to do, and here's how I do it now because I learned something different or I learned something better. Okay. So the prompts this time around are, how do you get started organizing a participatory, a participatory event? And are there things you used to do that you've changed that you wish you had done differently and now you do them differently? That's it. How do you get started? And what have you learned about starting your planning so far? We'll do like 6 to 8 minutes here of sharing. And again, please come off mute to share if you'd like to share aloud and I'll note take, or you can always type in the chat box and we'll copy and paste. Any questions? Okay, I'm gonna be quiet for a few minutes and enjoy all this wisdom you're sharing. These are great so far. Great trends forming about knowing what my audience is expecting and then making sure the audience knows what to expect from the event. That's a lovely pairing. They're all wonderful responses. If you've shared, really encourage you to take a few moments to look at the other responses as well, to review them. And again, please +1 the things that really resonate with you or connect with you or make sense to you. If you'd like to drop down a line and indent and add a question you have, or a link or a resource that you think provides a good example of what someone's sharing about, that's also another great way to interact here during a kind of like silent note-taking and brainstorming section of a call. These are great, so thank you. Got about maybe 5 minutes if we need it. I'll check in 3 minutes and see where we are. And these are all just lovely. If you'd like to share aloud or in the chat, if you're having any trouble with the document, we will make sure your notes get taken. Absolutely. Some +1s coming in. That's great. Checking out what each other are sharing is fantastic. Also love the trends here about, paying attention to culturally relevant material, paying attention to relevant material for your audience and making sure they understand what the workshop or event is about so they can make their own decisions about its value to them and how to participate. That's great. All that kind of clear communication, as someone noted, wonderful. Somebody said something that really resonated with me. I was a former classroom teacher before I got into nonprofit work, and the beginning of my career, definitely probably overshared, lectured a bit too much. And one of the keys over time to developing your own personal practices as facilitators in participatory events is figuring out how to structure or frame things so that your audience members have a chance to share with one another and teach one another. And then your work becomes reading that room, like we were talking about earlier in that in-person event, understanding what's being shared, and maybe bringing in some of your experience when you can address a gap or bring something up that hasn't been shared yet. And then it's like you are part of a large group of contributors to the call instead of someone in a more distant position as an authoritative speaker or lecturer or something like that. And it can be a very powerful form of, facilitation for people who get to realize and share they bring their own wisdom to something, but also are getting some value back from you because they see you paying attention. They see you acknowledging, recognizing, valuing what everyone's contributing, and just coming in with what they can as an individual as well, instead of insisting that they have all the answers. They make room for others to answer. And that is, I think, key to participatory events. We got just about another minute here. Please do take a moment, if you've not scanned the other responses yet, to +1 things or ask questions, share suggestions and resources and links. And again, if you'd like to share anything out loud right now, something you've already written, something you haven't shared yet, or put it in the chat, now's a great time to raise your hand or just to unmute and to let us know. Spend about another minute here. I'm already a little bit behind, but with you, my wonderful co-facilitators, I know we're going to end right on time today. I will attempt to get myself in gear. Would anyone like to share anything aloud before we go on? All right. Well, in the interest of improving my own facilitative practice and timekeeping here, we'll mosey on forward just a little bit. We'll go on now to the middle of page 5 or so in the agenda, and we'll share a little bit about pre-review's approach to before the event planning. So, always great to look around for some kind of institutional support. Always great to find ways forward where you don't have to do this work alone. And on like a very practical level, so grateful and thankful not only for this invitation, but for allowing us to be co-facilitating today, and for all of you to be my, co-facilitators as well with your contributions. But it's not something you have to do alone, and very often it's much better if you don't do it alone. So there might be folks whom you could work with. Many of you have mentioned communities or planning groups or committees to get logistical support. Who can help me set up meetings for planning? Who can help me find a space online or inside a physical community, a physical location for an event? Who can help with just the planning of the thing itself, the time, the date, the structure, the format, the technologies? Never hurts to ask around for funding. A host organization, a community sponsor, a grant maker. Lots of folks are interested, particularly interested in the work of preprint review right now in communities that are, affected by the research that is going forward. Never hurts to ask around. Developing strategies and networks for that over time can become a step in what you do in your planning. And then also, promotion. So is there that community or institution or organization or committee member who loves doing comms, who loves being on Slack or WhatsApp or wherever your communities are? Is that person ready to do some great communication to promote the event, to invite people, to engage people, to tease a few questions, maybe get some conversation started ahead of time? If you are that person or you have that person, oh, wonderful, wonderful. It's another thing to think about before an event, another way to look for support. And sometimes those host organizations, those sponsors, because they are attaching their name to this event, because they want it to be a success, they might have a person who can help too. Vanessa PREreview, great example of this, and amplifying our community members' work right on the community Slack. When you find that person in your organization as well, definitely bring them into your planning early and work on that comms, outreach, and engagement strategy with them. Planning content, right? Some of these things seem obvious, but it's always great to come back to them and to think about them in a very directly participatory way. So, as many of you already shared, right? Adapting your content to best suit your community, very important, creates value for everyone and creates pathways for participation where people can activate the knowledge they're bringing to the event. It's great. Clear learning objectives, as somebody said, right? clear expectations, and the comms person can help with this, planners can help with this, real team effort. What are we really trying to get at here? What do we really want to accomplish today? The more clarity you have about that, the more your audience is going to be the right audience for your event, the more, authentic the interactions, the engagement, the participation will be, and the more valuable to everyone it will turn out to be. And whenever possible, and bring in, connect with, create communities, networks of facilitators who have a diverse range of perspectives. And it's great to find team members with whom you can work really well while holding on to the individual differences in experience, lived experience and professional expertise that allow you each to to contribute different things to the organization, the planning, and the execution of an event. And I'm very thankful that in my career as a teacher and in the nonprofit space, always been connected with network community members outside of my organizations, as well as with colleagues inside my organizations who have been wonderful about bringing things to planning that I simply can't because of my experience. Registration, very key. It's great to set up some kind of registration, using a free online platform, or even, it could be a Google form, something that will get folks to provide you with contact information so you can remind them, right? Sometimes it's just the reminder the day before, the day of, that gets those folks to the event, rather than missing it, right? You're going to have your core audience, but having that registration method is super for everyone who doesn't just, automatically go right from an event to their calendar, put all the details in. Some of us are not as well organized as that, and registration can help you plan for your expected turnout, but it also really helps your registrants if you're then able to use that registration to remind them about the events. Now, that being said, you don't need to over collect information. Just what is most useful to make sure everyone is up to date and can participate on the call. You want to be, we call it, being data lean data. Only collect what you need to make your event a success for you and the participants. Don't over collect information, and make some kinds of information purely voluntary to provide, such as our roll call, where if you'd like to have an opportunity to find out kind of where people are in social media and the world and connect and continue these conversations, you can, but you don't have to. But however, for organizers, having like email addresses for registration is a great way to remind people. So really think about what you need to have for communicating with people and to measure the impact of your event, and maybe don't collect other things. All right. And then promotion. You've got registration. You've got those emails. Just like you're planning for the content for your call, do a little bit of calendaring and planning and drafting and revising together on a communication plan. Who's going to do social media? Who might do a blog post? Who's going to do an email? If it's the same person, who's going to help proofread, revise, suggest? How can that labor be shared, equitably across the team amongst the people who love it, who are really good at it? Communicate clearly and specifically on whatever channels your registrants are using. If you're collecting email addresses, email then wherever else they are, like the Slacks, the WhatsApps, the Blue Skies, the Mastodons of the world, wherever they are. Same message, very clear. Make sure everyone has what they need to attend beforehand. And if you have those, whether they're institutional hosts, partner organizations, people who really loved past events, you can send another email. You can send another message that's different from, hey, sign up, hey, show up. This message can be about, we really valued your contributions to the last event. Would you be willing to share information about this one with your community? Because we think your community has a lot to bring to this participatory event, because it's what it's all about, gathering the wisdom that we have together. All right. Sorry, just flipping through my slides here. All right. We'll go to during the event, but I think I wanted to do that after a little bit of a break, and we're kind of just on time for that break. So I'm going to mess around with my timing maybe here just a little bit, and let's take, well, let me see. Yeah, we'll shift. We'll do this last one activity and set up for during the event. We'll get some participation going. We'll discuss things together. We'll take a little break, and then we'll come back and get into a few more details. Let's do that. All right, here we go. So moving on now from before the event to during the event. We're going to do a quick breakout room, again, to get some background knowledge activated, to get folks discussing with one another. And on a larger call like this, where introductions could take up, a big chunk of time at the beginning, another way to handle introductions, especially if you're going to have multiple different sets of breakout rooms, is to invite people to introduce themselves to the folks who are going to be discussing with them in those rooms in a very structured way that doesn't take too much time, but allows everyone to identify themselves as they would like to be identified by the group. So we'll go for probably 10 minutes here, since we're a little bit behind on time, not the 15. There are going to be on page 6 of the document a place called Shared Discoveries, where depending on your breakout room, you can take notes right there. But we're going to shift now to think about what happens during participatory events. Again, the big idea here is not only to begin introducing ourselves to folks we'll have discussions with today, but also to activate that knowledge we already have. And as we join these rooms together, please remember to speak slowly and clearly. Please, the first time you speak, say hello and introduce yourself with just a sentence or two, however you would like to be known to the group. Remember to be kind. Speak 1/10 of the time, so a fraction. So if there are 4 people, each person should speak for about a quarter of the time. In this case, if we take 10 minutes, that means, about 2.5 minutes would be a great amount for each person to share. Please share one thing at a time. So if you have 5 ideas, share the first one, invite others to share, and then just keep going around. But try to share one thing at a time so others can also do the same. And just like when we did our shared note taking, affirmations, verbal +1s. Oh, yeah, that sounds great to me. Fine thing to do. Kind and clarifying questions. Oh, what do you mean by that? I want to make sure I understand because it sounds great. Those kinds of questions, right? Not debate questions. That's not what we're here for. And helpful suggestions like, oh, what you're describing reminds me of this workshop that I went to. Let me share the link. Oh, what you're describing reminds me of this blog post I read. Let me find the link. Those kinds of, resources and suggestions are great. If you put them in the notes, it's awesome. But here are our prompts for the breakout rooms. I'm going to start them in a minute, and then I'm going to go ahead, launch them, and you can join them. We'll probably have 3 to 4 people in each room. But here are the prompts. I would like you to share a tip for inviting different kinds of participation on a call or in an in-person workshop like Open Reviewers or other workshops you've attended recently that are fresh in your mind. Share an idea for how during an event you would invite people to participate in different ways. And then share a challenge you've faced while facilitating or as a participant in a participatory workshop. Have you been in a participatory workshop where something made it difficult to participate? Or have you planned a participatory workshop where something didn't quite go the way you imagined it? What made that hard? What made that challenging? Those are the 2 things. A tip for how to get people involved with your event and a challenge you faced in an event like this. Any questions about the prompt? All right, as your group gets into its discussion, if you would please add notes on page 6 to your room, that would be fantastic. I think we'll probably do one more room just in case we need it. Do a room 5 here. All right, I'm going to start the rooms. If you need help joining a room, please let us know. And in 10 minutes, we'll come back together. Yeah, that looks good. Come back together here in 10 minutes, and then we'll take a bit of a break. If you need help, let us know to join a room, or if you're in a room and need help, hit that help button. Lama Sarai will join you. Here we go. Please go ahead and accept those invites, or click on your More menu and choose Breakout Rooms as a choice to find out your room and to go join. Welcome back. There we go. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our note takers as well for adding to the document there, right in the middle of page 6. Before we take a quick break and come back to further discuss a few points about things that might happen during a participatory event and what we might do after a participatory event, would anyone like to share part of their discussion here with the group? And again, just a quick, share of maybe one thing that was really important to your group, and then we'll take a break. You're welcome just to come off mute or to raise a hand, share in the chat, anything you'd like.
Hi, everyone. Group
Hello.
3 here.
Yes.
Yeah, in group 3, we discussed the importance of having a broad representation of participants, but also keeping your target group, choosing a target group that will potentially benefit and not give you problems ahead. Then we also discussed having proper interaction, using specific tools that can help you increase engagement. We talked about a few challenges relating to participants who are always reluctant to participate, especially when it is online, and then participants who tend to, know and over participate in sessions, and then tend to overshadow the others. Thank you, Andor.
Yeah, absolutely. That was great. And maybe during Q&A, I come back to a couple of those things. I'm curious about how others have dealt with folks who are so excited to share that they overshare. Certainly something I've thought about and have tried to do in the past. In terms of, I'm sure I did that myself in the distant past, but I think about it now as a facilitator and how to prevent that. That was great. Would any other rooms like to share something before we go on? All right. Well, please continue adding to the notes. Room 1, would love a couple of notes from room 1. Would love to know what's on the top of your mind as you think about these prompts about inviting participation during calls and challenges you might have faced in doing that. And if you'd add something, that'd be wonderful. But let's take a nice 8 minutes here, come back at 10 past the hour, or perhaps 40 past the hour where you are in the world, and we will continue there with more about planning for participatory events and workshops during those calls or during those events. Okay, back in 8 minutes, please. Some communities I don't hear anything about is like badges. Some people love badges. Some people never think about badges, but you could have badges. And, for folks who do special roles, multipliers, returners, maybe you have badges for them. And they're the kinds of folks who love badges and they want to do the thing to level up in your organization that way. I've had, talked with many folks who are just like, no, I just love doing this. This is what I do. I don't really need a badge, but I would love to join the next live review, for example. I think they're cool. It's just about knowing your community, I guess. And if you collect enough information from community that like 50% of the people want badges, have badges ready. Give them to the 50%, give them to everybody. The other 50% aren't going to complain about them. But if it's like, you're in a community and like 5% of the people have ever mentioned badges, it's probably a better use of your time to find out what those other 95% of the people want than to make badges for just 5%. And it just comes down to continuing to do that feedback loop, continuing to talk with community members. What'd you think of that? Was it valuable to you? How could we improve it? What would you like to do next? And design for that.
Thank you very much, chat. And I've just realized that I didn't click the record button.
Oh, that's okay. That's
But
okay.
yeah, I
That
think
happens
most
sometimes.
of the things are mentioned on the slides. And yeah, Nayera, I think has something on the chat.
Yeah, someone in the audience knows more on the topic than you. How do you wisely go around this? So it all depends, I think, on how they bring it up to you. And if they're trying to like show off, take over, dominate the time, monopolize the time, then even if they don't know more than you, right, you would still want to find a way to have people, give up the floor, let other people participate. But, structuring an event, someone like this one, where people could type as much as they wanted during silent Google Docking, and there were very clear rules about sharing one thing at a time in a breakout room, you can kind of structure things so that people can share often and frequently, without that kind of positional, authoritative competition. As a different kind of example, the most straightforward and direct thing that I've ever done, and I've done this maybe 2 or 3 times, I've often been in settings, especially earlier in my career when I was at different kinds of organizations that didn't necessarily have the same values as the organizations I'm in now, or just cultures, communities. There would often be a senior white male dominating the conversation or responding to everything everybody said, or shutting down junior colleagues or shutting down woman colleagues, something like that. And one thing you can do is take, especially if you're co-facilitating, this is one of my most secret tricks I'm going to teach you. Get a piece of paper, pencil, pen, whatever, do it on your computer, anywhere. You don't need to make like a permanent record of it. It can be something you can throw away quickly. It doesn't need to go like in someone's file or anything. And I say this because if it's a pattern over time, it probably should. But as a one-time thing, it's not so much a gotcha as it is a teachable moment, I think, at first. If it's a pattern, you respond to it differently. If it's very offensive, you respond to it differently. But I'll sit there for like 3 minutes and I'll just put down the name of whoever is dominating the conversation. And I'll put down like interrupted someone, responded out of turn, shut down junior colleague, shut down a woman. And every time they do one of those things, I'll make a tick mark. And then at the next break, or even just during the meeting sometime, if somebody else is talking, I will quietly move over behind them, whisper in their ear, and just be like, hey, I just noticed in the last 3 minutes or so, you interrupted people 12 times, and over 90% of them were women. I'm going to need to ask you to stop that behavior, or you can't be a part of this meeting anymore. And that has solved the problem every time. There are times for others I've heard about where it doesn't solve the problem and they do escort the person out of the meeting, and you can get help with that. You don't have to be the person doing that alone. Of course not. Like, that's another great reason for in-person co-facilitation. But that's a way to kind of address the know-it-alls when they are being serving their ego more than the group. And we are just about at the end of time. So if you have questions, add them to the doc or the chat. We'll get them in there. I'll type a response. But let me quickly pivot just to a few things here. Thank you very much. This slide's all about how to get in touch with us. Community@PREreview.org gets you our head of community, Vanessa Fairhurst. Great for brainstorming about everything we talked about today together. Help@PREreview.org gets you to me and to Chris, our head of technology. Great for starting a pre-review club, for example. Anything that needs a page built on our site. And then, I'm just at chat@prereview.org. I also have all the links to share with you. You can follow along with us on social media there as well. And is that the very last one? Oh, I think it is. So with that, I'm going to say 2 things. One is, thank you. You're amazing. Great contributions today. I'm looking forward to going back and reading the document. The second is, at the bottom of the notes, page 10, there's feedback. What worked for you on the call? What didn't work for you on the call? Is there anything that surprised you? And is there anything you would change? And I would love to get an idea from each of you somewhere in there that would help me run this better next time. So thank you very much. We're right on time. I'll hang out if we want to stop the recording if anybody has any follow-up questions, but this is your time too. So please go ahead and have a rest of the day that serves your needs. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chad. This was really amazing. And
thank
it
you.
opened our eyes to maybe, those small technical details that it would be really good that you take care of them in order to have a successful event. So thank you very much. It was really nice having you, and we sure hope to have you again and again with our
Well,
community.
it was lovely, and I'd love to chat, anytime.
Thank you. Thank you, Chad. Thank you very much. And
Thanks, everyone.
thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'll see you again later this week for our upcoming session. Thank you, everyone.
Bye all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Have a nice time.
You too.